The Sprintboard is where you can see all the different tickets that different developers are going to like take on during this like sprint quote. And the sprint lasts 2 weeks. So it's basically everything that they want to get done within a 2-week period. Sometimes, like I know that at the beginning of like a sprint period, Modibee will like request either she'll make tickets or request like Holly or someone to make some tickets that they want like me or another dev specifically to work on during that sprint. So those will just get assigned at the beginning of the sprint period. Different tabs here, or work tab, or just like it shows like a compilation of like tickets that you've worked on recently, whether you've like updated them or created them. So just like convenient place to access like anything that you're working on recently. Different projects within Jira. There's different sorts of I guess projects that were created. I don't really know what all the other ones do because I've only ever worked on the Informer 5 one. I know that there's this I5 testing one, which is made by the previous QA, but I'm not aware. I guess maybe it was for like once the QA team like expanded more, it would be like a specific place to work on. But just in the meantime, I've been putting all my tickets within like Informer 5. So it's not too important, but just know kind of like Informer 5 is where you're going to be working most of the time. Different filters tab. Filters is pretty useful. I know we touched on this a bit on Tuesday, just where you can put in and search for like specific criteria on like to apply against different tickets. The nice thing about it too is that you can also create your own filter that you can save. And that's nice because I know like I have a few saved here where it's like if they're IAC tickets, which are kind of like a committee that intrinsic allows to access like earlier builds of Informer and kind of test it out. So if they're reporting back with issues, there are different tags that I know like the CS team will put on those tickets, and then I can kind of track them. And then like 5.3 manual tickets. So let me see if they'll actually show. Yeah, so like I've just created like fixed versions 5.3, test plan is manual, verifiers empty, and so these are only tickets that kind of meet that criteria. Go through actually like making one from scratch. So let's say if I just want to make one, this would like test plan. And then if I want to save that, I just hit save as. And then if I go back to my filters page, you'll see that I have a few, like the ones that were already like pre-selected on the filters dropdown. You can see those appear here, and they're just starred, so they're easier to access. And then you can see if I go to this page, then there's the one that I just made. I haven't done this. I know you can set them between like private and public. I always just keep mine private, since at least for now I'm the only one still working on them. Let me see. I don't know off the top of my head how I can make that public. Right here. I'll just delete it for now. But yeah, just know that kind of like filters are really useful if there's specific tickets that you're looking to search for. One thing I can mention too, if I go to the advanced search, is that there is like, I think, what was it called? It was like JQL, like just kind of like if you want to search by just entering these like keywords that it'll automatically like fill in and let you search by. But you don't have to use that. I just use it because it's a little bit faster, I think. But you can also just switch to like this basic mode, and it'll let you search for those. Okay. Yeah, so if I want to do like fixed version, I can just check that and then go through and search for whatever version. So that's just another way if you wanted to search. I've never used the dashboards. Dashboard is just it's a filter that's applied for, I guess it's a screen that you can use to show like specific filter results, just in easily accessible page. This one has like this i5 mad dash fixes filter applied to them, which I think I took a look at it just a second ago. It looks like it's kind of like for more like critical tickets that need to be addressed like soon. Yeah, just an easily accessible place for the developers to kind of take a look at them. But I don't deal with this one too much, honestly. People never really. Let me see. Like no reason to use this, but I guess if you want to see what specific people are working on, you can see that there. And then apps. I know I mentioned this before, but I guess in terms of creating a ticket, there's that create button on the top there. You can select that project like before, but since we're always working in Informer 5, I would just leave it for Informer 5. Different issue types. So I know we touched on this before, but like different features, if there's a task that someone wants to work on, they can use that. Improvement tickets, if there's an existing feature that needs some improvement applied to it. Epics before, where if it's meant to be like an overall scope ticket that's going to comprise of a bunch of smaller tickets within it, then that's when we'll use the epic. Story, I know that I wasn't too sure about that before, but I guess that's kind of, it's similar to task, where if there's a specific like ticket that needs to be completed, you can, I believe actually stories may be more specific to under epic, just as part of completing that epic. That may be a case where you use story, but all in all, story and task are basically identical. Design tickets, where there needs to be like a meeting scheduled to kind of go over how to approach like a new feature or like fixing a bug or something like that. That's what the design would be used for, to kind of schedule that meeting. And then test, if we want to make a ticket that is to, I've pretty much been using it just if there are any automated tests I want to write, then I'll just write a test ticket and then assign that to myself during like a sprint or whatever. Then there's a summary, just a short a short headline of what that ticket's going to be for. Different priorities. I remember we touched on this a bit more and actually found a document, but that's okay for now. Just the one thing I wanted you to keep in mind with, I guess, with Pender is with this specific path, there is this file, it's this bug decision tree. It's a pretty good resource. I know that I used when I was starting out, which kind of helped me clarify when something should be reported as a blocker. So I think Modavi wrote this, but it says like bug comes in, is it a regression, block the current release. If it's a regression that we missed in a previous release, then could block it. If incorrect data is returned, then that means the blocker. Our customer is being blocked from using i5, then that's a blocker. Query breaking could block, and bugging a new feature could block. And then it just says like whether it actually is a blocker or not would be determined by Brad and Modavi, and then this is kind of what they go through to figure out whether they want to make it a blocker or not. So I think the two big things just to kind of keep in mind are like regressions are blockers, and then anything where you get like incorrect data coming back. If Informer's reporting back incorrect information, then that's a blocker. And then just anything that keeps customers from using i5, then that's a blocker as well. So that goes back to blockers here. And then kind of like just going down from there, critical. Most of the time the tickets are going to be just marked as major since that's the default option. But critical is anything that's kind of like nearing a blocker, but like it doesn't quite meet the criteria of those three things that we just went over. And I think a lot of the times too, where like it's one of the, like it was one of these like could block release. A lot of times those will get marked down into critical instead. And then from major, it goes down to like medium, minor, and trivial, just depending on the issue. Like I think one example I gave before, like there was just like a misspelling somewhere on the website that like so few customers are going to see, then like that'll be trivial. I'm trying to think of something that would be minor. I would say maybe minor, maybe like minor or medium would be something like a filter doesn't appear in a place where it should be, but if you like refresh the page, or if you need to if you have to do something like really obvious to get it to appear, then that'd be kind of like medium or minor. And then components. Components are just like identifying different parts of Informer. So issue with data sets, then you can use data sets. Issue with visuals. There's a visuals component. And then anything that kind of deals with like Informer in general, like it's kind of like a backend sort of thing, then that could be like framework. And then export. So it's pretty straightforward. Effects versions. Effects versions just touch on which the oldest version of Informer that issue affects. So let's say if it's an issue that affects like 5.3, 5.2.2, and 5.2.1 or something like that, then you would just put like 5.2.1. I'm sure. Yeah, we just went to 5.2.2. But that's just an example that you always go back to the oldest version that issue affects. I think does that still make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then description, just a short, or kind of like expanding upon whatever title you put in the summary. Like I know, like one thing I'll typically do is I'll put like dashes, kind of like saying, go to like data set, orders data set. Edit page. And then once I've given the instructions, I'll say observe crashes. And again, like I think I mentioned before too, that like if you have any additional information, like if there's a specific error that's given back by Informer when you like cause whatever problem you're reporting, I would just put out exactly what that error says here. And also if there's a log that also has that error, then I would either like try to get a copy of that file, just export it from Informer, or just copy and paste. Like if it's not, well, I guess it should give you the export, but just for whatever reason, you can just copy and paste whatever it gives you to. But probably the log file would just be better. Okay. One thing to kind of keep in mind too is that if you're putting in, for example, like a bug ticket, it will be reported in Slack. So there is a channel here. I found new bugs. I'm not sure. Yeah, you are part of it. Okay, good. Any bug tickets basically that get reported in Jira will appear here as well. And it's kind of nice too, because I know that like different developers, like they monitor this pretty closely, and a lot of them will, like I think Derek here saw this blocker ticket I put in and said like, he pinged me directly and said like, hey, can you try this PR that I pushed, see if this fixes that issue? And so I basically fetched that PR and then ran the same test and confirmed that it fixed the issue. So then I just closed that ticket out. But yeah, just kind of know that like there's another channel here in Slack where you can kind of get updates on any like tickets that you put in. And there is also this i5 build channel where you can see the status on tickets change. So you'll see here that like this ticket went from in progress to closed. Monterey changed that ticket from open to closed. This isn't a channel that I monitor too closely, just because like no one really ever comments on it. It's more for like you can see here, like I changed that. That was when I changed that ticket from open to closed. But just kind of like for generally observing like how certain tickets, the status on certain tickets are changing. But just kind of know that this is where you can monitor that information as well. So you'll see that there's this labeled entry here. There are different labels, I guess, that we use to tag some of these tickets. the most common ones are probably either like groomed, needs verification, or Jira escalated. I guess groomed is typically when we're going through like the Scrum meeting and trying to, or basically trying to figure out like if these tickets are valid or not. Once we've gone through and looked at a ticket during the Scrum meeting and we as a team have said like, okay, like this ticket is valid, and since Holly's, I think, the Scrum Master, she'll go and like mark the ticket as groomed. She'll also sometimes put in this tag that says like the ticket needs verification, which just means like, okay, maybe this is an issue now, but it could be fixed in like a newer version or like a build that's still in development. So that's when needs verification might be used. And then there's also Jira escalated, which I don't see that one too often. I think that's more for like if it's a ticket that becomes like more urgent, then, you know, putting an escalated label on it. And I'll go more into the need verification in just a second. But while we're looking at this, there are, so these are kind of like different, what do I call them? I'll say labels, different criteria, I guess. They get updated during the life cycle of the ticket. So you'll see here that like there are fixed versions. So once the developer has gone through and actually fixed the issue with it, then they'll update this fixed versions to the version that this fix will be merged into. Another thing too that's good to know are these story points. So during the Scrum meeting, we'll actually go through and apply what are called story points to these tickets. They're pretty, I don't want to say arbitrary, but they're we kind of just go through and assign a value to these tickets based on how difficult we think they'll be. And the values range from 0 to 21, but it's kind of like, it's like a, here, I grabbed this example here, but it's like a Fibonacci like format. And we don't use 0.5, but it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and then we use 21, and I think it stops at 21. But the way you can kind of think about it is 21, it means it will take longer than that sprint to complete the ticket. 13 means it will take the entire sprint. 8, I want to say, means it will take maybe about like half a sprint. And then it kind of just goes down from there. So like 5 and 3 are pretty similar in terms of like how difficult they'll be, and then 2 and 1, 0 are kind of like trivial for the most part. So there's no there's no like exact science to when we assign story points to these tickets. It's kind of like usually we'll have like a short conversation about the specific issue itself and like what we think it'll be and how long it might take to fix it, and then everyone just goes in and like votes for how many points they think that ticket's worth. So that's kind of just how story points work. If there's anything else here that's worth knowing. Target version. I know that is typically assigned when the developer starts working on the ticket. And typically it'll be for like the next version that's going to come out. But sometimes it'll just change depending on when that issue might, or when the fix for this ticket might be needed, or it is kind of like tied up with another issue, or there are a lot of factors that kind of affect like what the target version might be set for, but just kind of keep in mind that's what that means. Zendesk ticket count. So the Zendesk ticket count, there's a tool that the client services team uses to track like issues reported by customers. Let me see if I can, I don't think I have the link ticket on this one. Let me see if I can. Oh. Yeah, so that's a good example. So you'll see here that the Zendesk ticket count is currently set for 2. And that's because if you look, well, I'll go back to that. So you'll see there's the Zendesk support criteria as well with these linked tickets. And if I click on that, you can see that these are tickets in Zendesk where customers are actually reporting to our client services team that this was an issue for them. And if I click on that, that'll actually go back to Zendesk. So this is Zendesk, but we're not going to touch on this one too much because I never have to really work with it a whole lot. But just kind of know that that's what Zendesk is referring to essentially. Once the developer goes in and actually fixes the issue, if they go in and write an automated test using Mocha, then they'll mark it as integration. If they think it needs a manual test, then they'll mark it as manual. And then UI automated, not using this one too much, but once we get into more frequently writing the automated test alongside fixing these tickets, then that's when that would be marked. And then NA, if none of these need to be done, then NA. Yeah, so, and then just to go back to kind of this as well, this filter that I use in Jira for determining manual tests kind of goes back to that test plan where I just use whatever fixed version I'm working on, and then the test plan, that's the manual, and then verifiers is empty. Actually, I think I touched on verifiers. Let me get that real quick. And then verifiers, if a developer sets the ticket to manual, verifiers should be left empty. And then when I go in and actually write the test for that ticket, then I'll go in and put my name as a verifier. That pretty much covers Jira.